From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports podcast.
The fastest growing entertainment phenomenon of this generation.
I, Prophet of Esports, joined today by my friend and co-host William Collis.
Yeah, we got the book of Esports out. It's a big deal.
So everyone knows me as the Prophet and William as the Professor.
They may call me the Prophet, but in my life outside of the business of esports, I have worked on the investment side of the table for the better part of the last 2 decades. The single fastest growing area of gaming and esports is gambling. It's booming right now. You don't need to be a prophet like me to see that. However, as an investor, I've stayed away from gambling and betting companies because of the reputational risk and often shady nature of the companies involved. This was true until now. I've recently bought stock in a new public company called Esports Entertainment Group, or EEG, which is focused on esports and gambling. The big difference that changed my mind is that EEG is a public company, NASDAQ listed, and fully regulated, focused on esports betting. The regulatory and audit requirements of a public company are key in my mind to provide the needed transparency for players, bettors, and investors. I had an opportunity to host the CEO of EEG on this podcast a couple of months ago, and I was very impressed by his vision for the company. We've stayed in touch, and I'm delighted to announce that they've accepted to become a sponsor of the podcast. If you're a family office, institutional investor, or investor of any kind, really, Esports Entertainment Group, ticker symbol GAMBLE, GMBL, might be one of the best ways to get exposure to the esports betting space and gaming in general. Make sure to check them out at esportsentertainmentgroup.com. Having said that, I need to make sure to state that this is only my opinion. I'm not an investment advisor or selling stock in the company. Please make sure you do your own research and seek advice from a licensed professional if you're looking to invest in the field. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports podcast. I am Paul Doalibi. I'm joined today by my friend and co-host, William Collis. For those of you who are new to the podcast, welcome to the official podcast of esports. What we do here is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. For those of you who are our regular listeners who tune in every week, thank you guys so much for tuning in every week. Thank you for all the 5-star ratings and reviews. If you haven't done so yet, please go leave a 5-star rating and review. Tell us how much you love the podcast, or even better, tell a friend how much you love the podcast. And if you haven't already, I know all of you listening have bought William's book, The Book of Esports, but if you have not already, or if you have already, I should say, go leave a review on Amazon and tell William, because it makes him so happy. Tell William how much you love the book, how great it is, because it really is truly the best book in all of the esports industry. Sorry, William, you wanted to cut it. I
was adjusting the podcast viewers can't hear us, but I was adjusting my glasses with joy because nothing nothing warms my heart, even more than a fire. Nothing warms my heart than a 5-star review. So thanks, guys. If you enjoyed the book, it really does help me out. But in all seriousness, it's a good book. Check it out.
How are you doing, William? How was your week?
It was a pretty busy week, Paul. It
must have been, because I didn't hear from you.
Yeah.
I feel like you and I just didn't chat this week. So both of us must have been overly busy.
This was a weird week for radio silence for us. And only in part because I followed one of our live stream recommendations and started playing a little Loop Hero, which was quite a lot of fun. It was like a 8-bit throwback RPG. But yeah, but maybe part of the silence, I think, is due to awe of our phenomenal guest this week. Could that explain part of it?
I mean, it could very well be, because our guest this week is amazing. Truly, I mean, one of the ones I've been most excited about, actually. It's none other than Darren Glover. He's the division lead at VaynerGaming and VaynerSports.
Darren, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's as I
Should we-
said, it was very funny. I listen to you guys, so it's funny as I sit here. If I close my eyes or if I click away to a new tab, I feel like it's weird now that I'm talking. Normally, it's just you guys talking to me.
We may have to call you D Glove. I don't know. I mean, if you prefer, I do think it's a very cool name. I will say, Vayner Media in general, VaynerSports, huge name in the industry, not just esports industry, the sports industry, media industry. Gary Vaynerchuk is obviously a huge celebrity and influencer in and of himself. Darren, for those of you who don't know anything about you or VaynerGaming or VaynerSports, would love if you could give our listeners like just a bit of your background, how you got into gaming, what you're focused on now, just the Darren Glover story.
Yeah, I laugh and call myself a recovering basketball addict. That was my that was my life was basketball. So my parents, my dad was head of worldwide marketing at American Express way back in the day. My mom worked at Ogilvy and Mather. So like there's this level of business and marketing that kind of runs through my bones. But like just as soon as I started to get interested in it, basketball practice started. So 4 knee operations later, the basketball career, the horizon approached. The showers started for me probably sooner than what I would have liked, but it gave me the ability to find something else to do. I wasn't always blinded by basketball. I was now able to tap into other passions, and that just happened to be, marketing and the buzzword sort of thing. But I really started to understand, find an interest. I'm very interested in a lot of things. I have just an innate interest in why people do what they do. And that's what led me into wanting to get into marketing. But I'm passionate about sports and I love gaming. And how do I find a job that makes the most sense? So I started my career. One of my best friends got drafted to the NBA in 2015. I was working in digital media at a car agency on top of an Audi dealership. And I said, yes, absolutely. What am I going to do? I don't know. Just help me with my career. So it was fun to get started and kind of be a sponge from a talent representation side of an NBA athlete and helping with business opportunities, sponsorships, appearances, brand deals, equity opportunities, pitch decks, the whole 9 yards, and see it, at a very early age with a very top agent in the space, seeing that to me, what I figured out was there was a lack of branding and proactiveness in the representation side of athletes. So I decided to kind of chicken scratch a business model of how I thought, athletes should be branded and represented from a creative marketing side, and basically sold it into an advertising agency in-house saying, hey, you have all these creative resources and you work with these big brands. What if you took an athlete and just put them through the same process as you do one of your corporate brands? Oh, pretty good idea. So I ended up being an account manager and doing a lot of sports and entertainment work from an advertising creative agency side. And that just got me introduced to the business side of gaming. Just because I'm a gamer myself, I selfishly wanted to do more stuff in the gaming space, also because of the work that I was doing with some athletes, trying to figure out what's a unique piece of content that they can post that's not just another jump shot, that's not just another touchdown. Athletes talk about building their brand up, and they tell people and post images with, this emoji and a jump shot. And it's like, that's not building your brand. You're posting content because you feel like you just want to flex a little more. What's a unique way to grow? And that's where it was like Twitch. And it was about 4 or 5 months before the Ninja Juju Drake moment happened. So it was like right in the start of the bubbling of mainstream into gaming. What's Twitch? Justin T. Like it was kind of that era was when I got kind of thrown into it because I was just interested in learning more about it. And that leveraged me into working at a startup company that revolved around athletes and non-endemics getting into streaming. So I ran marketing and talent development for that company. And then throughout that whole career, I met Tyler Schmidt, who was Gary's chief of staff way back in the day. I connected with him in 2014, 15, and we just stayed connected over the 5-6 years. And we connected again when I was butting heads with my previous company. And he let me know that there might be an opportunity here at VaynerSports to lead the gaming division, knowing that I have a non-endemic background, but with an understanding, like an endemic understanding. You kind of put those two together, and that's kind of where the industry is headed anyway. So I totally respect the endemic side, but I also have a connection to the non-endemic side. And a year later, I'm representing Booga, been a part of all of his major deals that he's done over the last year. We've brought in almost 10 million in revenue for him over the since he won the Fortnite World Cup. Great licensing deals. We're launching a big deal this year, and yeah, we're growing his business at the same time, recruiting one more streamer, client, content creator, and then growing kind of a business consultancy side as well, because we have access to top level folks at a lot of companies. They have a lot of questions about gaming, and it's like in conversation, you just hear them ask questions where you're like, I think we can help you out with that, or hey, maybe we should connect you with these two folks because they do X, Y, and Z, and let's try to create something special together. So there's kind of this growing consultancy side of VaynerSports that are doing more things in sports, but gaming is going to be a part of that.
I love it. I love it, Darren. Super. I have 10,000 questions here. Let's start with the sort of the talent agency / creative agency side here.
Let's do it.
Which is, and my question is as follows. As I've watched the industry over the last few years, I think one of the areas that I've seen become, I think, very crowded, I'll say, is that creative agency / talent agency side. More so probably creative agency than talent agency, but it's become, in my mind, very, very crowded. You have sort of everyone and their dog starting an agency because the barriers to entry are low. Where do you see VaynerGaming fitting sort of in that mosaic of other agencies and, ones with much lesser brands than you, maybe ones that have been around a bit longer than VaynerGaming? Like, where do you guys fit, and what is the unique sort of value proposition of a VaynerGaming?
I mean, you said it to kick off the conversation, right? Gary's a celebrity. Everybody knows Gary. He's got millions and tens of millions of followers. We've been representing Booga for coming up now on almost 2 years, a year and a half. We've had opportunities to sign other clients, and we haven't, right? We're not creating the business model. A lot of the agencies that you're referring to, the business model that they're creating to us doesn't make sense. Let's sign as many clients as we can. Let's cut ourselves very thin and sell against the whole instead of building deep brand community content and growing an individual and turning down a fast, quick hitting deal today because we're working on growing their community. So we're very content heavy. When you see Booga's channels, he has 5 million followers on TikTok because we're the ones that are driving that machine. He's able to stream 7-8 hours a day. And we've been able to develop that trust with Booga to say, dude, you're already creating this content. It's not like we're posting something or creating something that's not already on the internet. You put it out there 7-8 hours every single day. What we're able to do is not put that weight on your shoulders to distribute that content. So over the last year and a half, we've been able to grow his channels to 20 million plus. He's able to do what he does best, which is focus really, really hard on his community on Twitch. And then we're able to take that content and repurpose it and distribute it on other platforms so that he doesn't have to worry about the burden of creation, and he can just worry about connecting with his community and not editing and reposting and sharing other content. So what makes us different is, one, from a content lens, we want to build our talents community. We don't just want to sell against their name, aka the 40 names of clients that we have. And then two, the uniqueness that we have is the Vayner ecosystem. VaynerMedia is a billion-dollar media agency that works with top-level brands. We can get access to a lot of places. Booga was in a Super Bowl commercial, not just because of anything other than he was one of our clients. Like, those are the types of opportunities that we can provide, and we have a badass team of, our CMO, Mike Nelligan, is a kick-ass marketer and sales. We just have a badass team, but we're focused. We're not spread so thin that you never hear from us again. We're very hyper-focused on developing our talent, not just selling them.
I mean, in that vein, and sort of as a follow-up then, and this has come up on a previous podcast, and maybe you listen to the discussion, is FaZe has all these, I think it was FaZe, yeah, that had, obviously they have all this talent signed. And then we saw maybe about a month ago where they signed, or CAA signed them, right? Where you had sort of team acting fundamentally the way William and I saw it, as a talent agency, but then outsourcing the talent agency
Right.
activities to another talent agency. And so, like, how do you feel about teams where they play in that talent agency kind of spectrum? And how do you feel about sort of this development where like talent agencies hiring talent agents? I have no better way to phrase that question.
Yeah. I think it's what FaZe has done so well. FaZe FaZe is such a strong brand, and they have invested so much into the brand. Whether you like the brand or dislike the brand, the FaZe brand. So the way that I look at that is smart. I mean, every professional sports organization has advertising creative agencies that help them. I don't know what CAA is doing for them, but FaZe has so many legs that they're dealing with, from traditional representation of esports athletes all the way to just content, and all the legs that and ponds and pools that they're dipping their toes into. I don't know what FaZe is up to, but I don't think they're just doing it to do it. I kind of applaud them for doubling down on their brand and asking for help. And I don't see there being an issue, knowing that these organizations, if they do have a strong enough brand, how do you balance trying to bolster your talent up and putting your brand underneath versus, no, it's our brand first, then our talent second? Well, maybe if you split it up, I don't know, but it's, to me, I applaud them for doubling down. Like, what they're doing right is they are building a brand that's long lasting. They're not just siphoning value from their talent. I don't know. I'm
so
neutral,
let me ask the question more directly. Like, if Cloud9 came to you guys, came to VaynerGaming tomorrow and said, we want you to manage all our talent, does that fit your model, or do you start feeling like then we're spread too thin?
Us personally, we'd be stretched too thin, but I don't know what is CAA doing for FaZe. Do you know what they say? Like, I don't see CAA managing, and maybe I'm wrong. I was more looking at that partnership and more of like an entertainment media branding partnership, not a can you help us manage our talent partnership. But maybe I'm wrong. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm sure that it was focused very much on like bring us more traditional entertainment kind of deals, which CAA is maybe better equipped to bring than FaZe directly,
or help them with regards to like their FaZe studios, right? They're creating original content. That's not easy, and maybe CAA is able to partner with them just like CAA can partner with any other traditional Hollywood studio, but they're partnering with FaZe. Maybe that was a driving factor, and because of that major deal with FaZe Studios or whatever, maybe they'll help out with some talent. But I think even from a pipeline of talent signing with FaZe, if I know that, I think Cloud9 is great. I'm not putting them up against each other, but if I'm looking and I'm a content creator and I know that if I sign with FaZe, I have a pipeline to original content opportunities that get distributed on Netflix, that's pretty interesting to me versus signing with an org that just has a traditional model that doesn't have that opportunity. It's also a sales pitch for FaZe to attract the top tier creator talent, knowing that you can become a part of this ecosystem that has more offerings that can get you to bigger and better places than just an endemic gaming org that's just going to make you a bigger gamer.
Darren, let me put you on the spot about Bugha, because this also came up on the podcast when we saw the original announcement of VaynerGaming signing Bugha. And William and I were both at the Fortnite World Championships that he won. I will admit, up until that point, I had never heard of Bugha, but I'm also not the biggest Fortnite esports fan, so I'm the wrong guy to ask here. But my feeling at the time was, and in some ways, it's been completely sort of smashed by the number you threw out, which is $10 million, of revenue, which you've driven to Bugha, is amazing. Congrats on that. But my feeling at the time, and William, I don't know if you felt the same way, but jump in if you didn't, was that for me, VaynerGaming and Gary in general, like that whole brand, Vayner brand, right, is very much top of the heap, right? And I was surprised when the signing was Booga and not like Ninja, right? Just to make a point, where Booga, yes, great Fortnite champion, but even at that point, Fortnite was sort of in decline, and I would argue Booga is not. Maybe you guys feel differently. He's not the biggest personality in the room either, right? Great player, maybe great content creator, but not you don't think, man, this guy's the most bankable guy in the room immediately. Why Booga and not a Ninja? Like, what was the thinking there?
We started working with Booga after Fortnite World Cup, within a month after Fortnite World Cup. So the Vayner ecosystem was managing him. He didn't have a home yet. That was kind of part of the growth of VaynerSports, which was as Booga became a part of the Vayner ecosystem and was getting opportunities via Tyler Schmidt, Vayner Talent, Gary, like everybody was kind of pitching in to create what Booga was for that first 6 months prior to officially, 6-7 months prior to officially joining with VaynerSports. But it was the idea that he's not a big talent, but when you get into, like, as we talked about before, like thinking of where the future of gaming is going, Ninja and Booga are in the record books, like the single highest gaming whatever the thing. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records. Legitimately, he is. He, like, that type of talent and character. He was 16 years old, right? He's just like his kid. Like, he turned 17 4 months later. Like, he is this kid. So yeah, like, he's not the biggest personality, but from a branding side, when you get to know him, you get to know his parents. He's a very normal kid. He's not a Hollywood douchey guy. Like he there was some tweets. Sorry, I'm bouncing around because I was just thinking of it. A bunch of the Fortnite community around his anniversary. It was something, and the Fortnite community is a toxic community. It is. Holy smokes, right?
Yeah.
It was cool to see a lot of Fortnite folks that, whether they talk shit or not, regardless, for some reason, it just popped up of people saying there couldn't have been a better face of the game that all these people are playing than Booga, because of the toxicity in the industry and with a lot of the top tier talent. Imagine if, fill in the blank. We can all fill in the blank, whatever gamer we're thinking of. But there couldn't have been a better face of the game to sit next to Jimmy Fallon, to do the morning show. Like, there couldn't have been a better face for gaming than this kid who's very normal. And a lot of people's first introduction to esport, to e-sports, e-gaming sports. I mean, a lot of those people that watch Jimmy Fallon and the Today Show, that was their first introduction. What the hell is Fortnite, and who the hell is Booger, right? Like, there are a lot of people that said that because of that era of him winning. Who better to represent that than this normal family from Pennsylvania that won all this money? So we looked at it as very much a positive, because he does have a normal brand to himself. With our strategy and approach of how we're putting that to life, the execution of it is more where we come in. We're not trying, we weren't trying to sign somebody who already created a face for themselves and then is going to take them to Hollywood. Like, that's not us. We want to take somebody that has a strong core, and they need help distributing that to the world. That's where we see ourselves as being the biggest value to someone like him.
I almost feel like it's a great ad for VaynerGaming, right? Because again, my feeling still about Booga is like kind of plain, right? Not the biggest personality.
Fortnite.
Right. Like exactly, right? And even the game, in spite of, it's still popular, but it's not, it's not the rocket ship it once was. And in spite of all this, the success you've had with him and the deals you've brought, like, to me, this is sort of like a great VaynerGaming use case, right? Because you could have started with a bigger star. You could have started with a bigger personality. You could have started, the starting point could have been much more favorable. It's interesting how successful the outcome was, despite those things.
Well, and again, and it's not just us, right? It was also Booga wanting to work with us too. Seeing the value and understanding the things that he is a 16-year-old kid that's just as normal. I'm not a celebrity, and like look at quarantine too. Like he didn't have the normal upbringing that a celebrity would have had. Like if it wasn't quarantine, think of all the shows that he would have been going to and all the in-person events and TwitchCon and the meet and greets and all this stuff. He would have felt like a celebrity, but he's still a normal kid that's just playing in his basement, right? He hasn't even really experienced the fact that he has over 20 million followers because of what has happened in his first real year of being a quote unquote big deal. He still doesn't really understand what that is. And I think that core in a human is fun to work with because it's natural, it's organic, it's less things to worry about. It's easier to talk with brands because there's no hesitancy of I'm nervous about anything. It's just how do we figure out the right way to partner together? And that's even like our Five Below deal that we created, which has been extremely successful. Why is the champion partnering with kind of a low scale retail brand offering products for $5 and $10 below? It was part of the messaging of how we brought it to life, where a normal agency would have done the big licensing deal with the great money guarantee and would have let the Five Below team just run it out. And we were nervous that the headlines were going to be, Booga sells cheap, right? Like that's what it potentially would have been, because people would have seen that and they would have compared the Five Below products, the Matrix keyboard and the Razer mouse. They would have looked at it as a premium product. But what we were able to do as a team in partnership with Booga is saying, this is our concern. How do we create a proper message for this launch? And we created the message around Booga partners with Five Below to make gaming more accessible, because that's something that's passionate to him, being an inspiration to kids that want to get into gaming and see the opportunity. But it costs hundreds of dollars to get premium product. How do we get more people gaming at a lower cost to develop skills and the fundamentals and then almost graduate into the premium products? Like we had these conversations with them and we were able to execute it, and we 8 to 10x all of Five Below's projections of product sales. And we pat ourselves on the back and pat Booga on the back to say, great job for giving us that insight around what you're passionate about. And then great job for us to work with the Five Below team to create that messaging. So anyways, I don't mean to make this an ad on gaming, but
I love that, right? Like we actually talked about this on the podcast as well, that specific deal. And we had the same discussion around, what will people think here? Is this just low budget, like cheap product, or is there something more here? Right. And we came to the same conclusion. And so clearly the messaging worked, which was, this is very cool that, a kid can go in and buy all his gear and it doesn't cost him more than, $50 or $70 or whatever, like the full sort of suite was. We could only come to the conclusion that this was a good thing. And so clearly like that messaging worked, right? Which is fun. It's always fun to sort of see under the covers.
Yeah. It's purposeful branding. Like we want to partner with folks with a purpose. We're not just in it for that quick check. That's when you become irrelevant. You become a lot of splashes in the pan because you're just doing things for the moment instead of figuring out how do you introduce a message into his own community and to the outside community that resonates with people, and then leveraging that to his partnership with Advance Club, which is all around the education of Fortnite. It's kind of the master's class of becoming better at Fortnite. And then every month he does a VOD review of a top game that he had that month that all the members of his Advance Club get to watch and learn of what he's looking at. And I'm not a Fortnite player, but all of the funnels and the skills and the comms and whatever, but it's awesome educational content. It's getting more people to think deeply. Like, we've created a brand partnership strategy for him that makes sense. It's not just how much money can we get? How little deliverables can we provide you? Great. Sounds good to us. Off to the next client. Like, that's not our approach.
Darren, as I know you and I are both Apex gamers, we aren't cracked enough to worry about building at the same time. It's just it's too much to think about.
No.
What I am hearing,
give me an Octane jump pad and a Bloodhound scan, and I'm good to go. And a Gibby ult. And I am set.
William, I don't know if you had any questions. I wanted you to jump in here, but
I actually have. I was kind of biding my time because I have a very specific question about talent management, which is kind of very divorced from what we've been talking about previously, but it's actually really interesting, which is, I sort of subscribe to this theory of talent management, which is, where talent agencies add value, which is basically a life cycle management view, right? Like that when a celebrity is hot, they make money no matter what, right? Like the best talent agencies, it's not when it's a AAA status and the cash is pouring in that they're doing their, like, that's not where the best talent agencies distinguish themselves. The best talent agencies distinguish themselves at the other ends of the curve when the celebrity is coming up and how they build the brand and develop them so that they have a very high peak. And then the part I'm interested in asking you about, which is, and this is not to cast any aspersions on Bugger or anyone. I'm not saying this is where his career is. It's just a theoretical question. When their career is on the decline, right? And how you manage and extend the late life cycle of the celebrity so that they continue to remain relevant and they continue to have monetization and employment and brand building opportunities long after the fact that they're hot, because nobody stays truly super hot forever. And so again, this is totally hypothetical, nothing to do with any specific clients you have today, but I'm curious, like, can you talk about the Vayner approach to that sort of second half of the curve? Because why I'm so interested in this is I think that's a lot of what's missing in esports today. There's a lot of like, oh, we'll help you when your stream is on fire, or, oh yeah, we're really good at, getting you viewers, but there's not a lot of the kind of post management of this is how we extend your success. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and I can get very in the weeds on it, but also to keep it high level, it's like, one, it's actually caring about the individual and that point in their career. You can't teach that. You can't teach somebody to care about their client. So that's just one of the intangibles, but it's also being able to have the actual resources to provide those value props. A lot of agencies don't have it. They're very much a here and now agency that when you start to become irrelevant, the agency starts to look at you as becoming irrelevant too. And it's almost like, your freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, and then you go off somewhere else. We had a good solid 4 years. Great job, buddy. But we got someone else coming through the pipes. Like, that's also a business model that a lot of agencies have with talent because they just don't have the resources and solutions and services to help their clients out. So from our perspective in Vayner, it's awesome because while there's a lot of different pockets of businesses that's kind of in this Vayner ecosystem, we all can work together. From VaynerSports side, Gary's talked about it. AJ Vaynerchuk, who's Gary's brother, who's our CEO, has talked about it. They sometimes spend more time with football guys that have retired than they do ones that are currently in the league, because that's kind of where AJ and Gary get really excited about it, because it's an exciting point to a celebrity athlete, gamer, whoever's career, because it is so underdeveloped and underappreciated. But in Vayner, we've got a speaking bureau. We've got a whole, I don't know what it's called, a whole publishing department for books. We have Vayner Talent that's very big into the podcast world. Gallery Media Group has their own podcast distribution. So we have these solutions. So one, it's like knowing that we have the resources. Two, we actually care about our clients. And three, when we sign them when they're hot, we talk about that and let them know that. So it's not something that they're stepping into not understanding it, but they know that it's a life cycle. And even if we're not officially signed, we're good people. Like, even if you're not officially signed to us, we enjoyed the time that we had with you. We're happy to introduce you and plug you and get you to this deal and put you on this stage and whatever it might be. A lot of it is like the unscalable too. It's like, you want to work with good people that you want to have a relationship with, and relationships sometimes, relationships last forever. It's not a transactional opportunity, but also, in my opinion, it's on the talent side too. It's holding them accountable as well. It's not all on just the representation. There's a lot of opportunities out there, but some of the hot streamers and gamers sign because they want that fast cash. They don't care about the later in life because they're super, egotistical and just want as much money as they can get right now. And then they realize, oh, wait, maybe this wasn't the best opportunity for me, because now, whether I tore my ACL or I did like whatever thing, or I said something horrible on a stream, whatever it might be, I didn't sign with the right people that provide me with an insurance plan of, if this lane doesn't work out, what else can they help me with?
Here's what I know, Darren and William. Two people that will be hot forever are the hosts of this podcast. So
100%.
You know,
there
you know-
won't ever be a decline here, William. Come on.
I was gonna make a similar joke, but no, but it's actually it's a really good analogy, Darren, and I really appreciate it. It's because I do think it's an underappreciated and undersolved aspect of the industry today is how do you post life cycle manage talent. And I think it's a very developed element, as you sort of point out with Vayner and the resources you have, right? It's very developed for traditional celebrity, but a lot of people aren't thinking about it for esports, including the talent themselves, as I think you correctly point out.
They're not at all. I mean, I was just having a conversation earlier today about the org's part and take in that, the agency, the individual. How do they all kind of work together? And a lot of times to me, the cracked system is within the business model underneath. It's like what are our quarterly earnings in the company? Like, are we making more money than what we're spending? And it's very easy to just cut people off. And then, creators get on Twitter and bitch and moan and complain and cry in a big, twit feed. And it's like, what? You signed the contract. That's your deal. You knew what you were getting yourself into. It's not a surprise here. They can cut the deal at any time, just like you can cut. Like, why are we crying about this? You got yourself into it. Don't cry because they didn't want to keep you around for 25 years and whatever. It's like that to me is the accountability of the creator. Don't complain about the org cutting you. Like, it's a business to them. Like, that's what everybody kind of starts to understand at some point. I think there's a lot of emotions in the industry as well that, people have to become a little less emotional about it and make the right decisions and don't step into contracts with emotion, step into contracts with a little more, a colder heart. What's best for me right now? Like, that's what like a lot of creators don't think of it. They think they need the org. They need it. You don't need it. They should want you and you should want them, and let's come to an agreement. But a lot of creators step into these deals because it's my lifelong dream to sign with them. And then 2 years, a year and a half later, when they get cut, they're crying on Twitter. And it's like, well, wait a second. You should have thought about that when you're signing the deal. Nothing changed. It was in there when you signed. I don't know.
I have an interesting question on that, William. Go ahead.
Go for it. Yeah,
Go
no,
ahead.
you go. No, you go first.
I don't mean to sound like this, whatever, but it's like sometimes.
Let me ask. My question is, how do you? So presumably you tell that to your talent when you sign them. You give them that advice because you're probably competing for contracts. You're having conversations, right? Like, I mean, honestly, how do you pretend I'm talent and you're signing me? How do you communicate that value proposition across the table? I'm just curious, what it comes across. How it's portrayed to the talent themselves.
We don't have to pretend, Darren. You should sign the professor.
Seriously, is this you guys have bamboozled me? You just
this was all a trick. We have the contract prepared in the other room.
Got it. To be honest with you, I think a lot of times people in the talent industry, we don't try to sell people on us. We show them this is what we're able to provide to you, and if it doesn't hit anything, it's not really hitting a certain chord with you, maybe we're not right for you. And that's okay. Like that's really, I've been on multiple calls from the gaming side of things. I've been on other calls with the athlete side of things. You can't want something so bad that you end up slipping and falling and making the wrong decision. Like, you have to it has to feel right. And if you don't think this feels right, if you don't want these types of resources, if you don't see the value in them, there's only so much selling that I can do before I'm selling you on an opportunity and not just outlining our vision of what we're able to provide you. And if you don't see it as valuable, maybe you're just not right for us. And that's okay, because we don't want to work with you if you're not right for us, because now we're both pissed off when we sign the deal, because it's not a good arrangement. I think a lot of people, again, people sign to places based on emotions because they feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm signing to this place or whatever. And it's like, sometimes you just have to cut to the chase, where it's like, do I want that? Am I okay signing this when I kind of sober up 2 weeks from now? Like, that's where people really start to make their mistakes, just like us. When we might really want somebody, but then we get on the call and we're like, whoa, man, like, maybe this isn't the right person for us. Like, we have to make that decision to just be honest. Honesty to me is a missed art here in negotiation, is just to be honest about it. Like, we don't feel like you're right for us. I don't know. That's come up before in conversations. But anyways, not to be long-winded and be like super heady with it, but I don't feel like there's really a formula to all of this. It's very much like laying out the value and the value prop and how we see you growing within what we're able to provide you. What do you think of that? And if they're short answered and don't see a lot of value, maybe you're not right for us, and that's okay. I'd rather say put you to the side and go after somebody else than waste my time trying to sell you for 2 months and you end up saying no anyways.
I just had one comment, Darren, on as sort of as a follow up to William's original question around, the last part of your career or sort of the end of your career as an esports pro or like a booga. Do you find that esports has this unique challenge that sports has to a lesser extent, which is, if you're playing football, your career, unless you're Tom Brady, is probably over at like 35, right? 40 if you're really lucky, early 30s or late 20s if you're not so lucky, right? Versus esports, where in just about every esport by 25 you're a really old man, right? And so is this a unique challenge that you guys see or recognize? Do you feel it presents unique opportunities or unique challenges, I guess is my question.
I think it does, and I think the industry in and of itself is not as mature as other sports. So, the way that the old guys are retiring now is not going to be the same way as it's going to look like in 5 years and 10 years, whatever it might be. So I think when you look at traditional sports from the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, the MLB, it's been a pretty mature industry, and the game has been around for quite some time, and it's changed and it's different and it's grown, but the overall structure of it has been pretty much the same. And the process of becoming a rookie, becoming a vet, and retiring has happened. And there's a lot of the same thing going on over and over again. And then it's easier to provide resources because the same problems continue to occur. I think the difference with esports is that it's growing. So it's tough to put together solutions today that fit the problems that are going to come about in 2 years when the industry is not mature. And it's so malleable right now. And as we started the podcast talking, like, your remarks on the CDL and Call of Duty, right? It's like, I don't know if they're going to be around in 5 years. So how can or 2 years or whatever it might be, the industry just isn't as mature. So it is a very difficult process. Like, does everybody just go into broadcast? Does everybody just become a streamer in their basement? I don't know. But there's also the opportunity that it's difficult, but that's the biggest opportunity because there aren't solutions out there. So for you to think of a solution and go for it and create an opportunity for folks after they retire, because it hasn't been created yet, that's where I think the exciting piece of the industry is for people to focus on that. I haven't seen a lot of stuff talking about retired esports athletes. What do you do? Where's the broke 30 for 30 of esports athletes, right? At some point in time that might come out. Hopefully it's not with one of our clients.
Broke by 25.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great ESPN 30 for 30 right there.
It would be a good piece of content. Sorry, one last question from me on something you mentioned at the very beginning of your background and sort of what you're doing at VaynerGaming. You use the word non-endemic. And this is, again, another recurring theme on the podcast of, when I get on the soapbox, I sort of hate splitting the brand world into endemic and non-endemic, right? Because I feel like it means some brands, gaming or esports is more off limits for them, or like less clear of a path for them, or whatever, however you want to describe that, right? Do you look at the world in this endemic, non-endemic kind of split? Or
no, I don't. And it's to the point where it's like, based on who you're talking to, you have to talk a certain way. And I'll be honest with you, because in a daily basis, I go from talking with people that get it all the way to the other side of the spectrum of people that have no idea what they're talking about. I also get kind of fumbled with my words sometimes. I'm like, who am I talking to right now? Like, do I have to talk this way or that way? So that also makes it kind of difficult. So no, I personally don't. In my heart, I don't see it that way. I think being able to talk to somebody and help them understand the space and what they can do. Like, sometimes you have to throw out those kind of like nauseating buzzwords or like whatever. because it's something that they heard on a panel podcast or a clubhouse, and it's like that rings a bell or that strikes something. But no, I don't see it. It's, to me, I think there's never been an industry suited to be in such collaboration with non-endemic and endemic, because it's not like a traditional sport, even though a lot of people talk about it, or you see a lot of these white-haired traditional sports folks getting into the esports side and using their resume to get opportunities. It's like, well, your background really isn't relevant, to be honest with you. Like, it's not a traditional sports sponsorship. It's way different.
So you're not a fan of Activision Blizzard making a hire from Major League Baseball
No,
to go
no,
run their
it is what it
esports
is.
thing?
No, I there's always good people in every industry, but I'm in a broad stroke, there's a lot of folks coming from the traditional sports side pumping their traditional sports muscles, and it's kind of like, okay, what?
Darren, from your perspective, how many years do you think, and obviously everyone should be listening to the Business of Esports podcast, and if you are, this question doesn't apply, but how many years do you think before we get over the education hurdle with brands? Like, where whatever brand you're talking to on any given day,
Yeah.
you don't have to explain why this opportunity is exciting, or why they need to get involved, or why they need to put dollars and resources.
It's going to happen fast. I think it's more, what I'm looking for is for brands to just respect the industry. And it's moving so fast. You know, we could talk about crypto and blockchain and all this other stuff. Like, technology is moving so fast. Esports is evolving. Esports versus gaming versus streaming versus, you guys were talking about it the other day, of the right move for Twitch to expand into so many different buckets of content that stem past gaming. Well, is Twitch even the best gaming platform then, if I'm getting bumped down by FIBA? You know what I mean? Like, but that's it's moving so fast. But to me, it's, in talking to some of the brands, it's not the fact that they don't get it from an education side. Like, I still think there's a level of respect. You don't have to get it to be able to put money behind it. Just hire somebody that gets it. But if you don't respect it, you're not going to put money into it, because you think that it's not the space for you, so to speak. So I think there's like a deeper level of understanding with brands, that it's less, to me, education might get their respect, but yeah, to me, it's like respecting the industry and what's inside of it. I don't have to understand where and who's booga and what, like, don't worry about that. Hire somebody that's in the space to get it, but just give me the money and the budget so that I know where to put it. But you're never going to get the budget if they don't respect the value that the industry can provide. And I think that's going to happen very soon.
I love that. I hope all the brand marketing people listening to this podcast take that to heart. William, do you have anything before I jump into the first news piece?
I think it's time to go to news, but I will say, Darren, this is absolutely fascinating. Like, it's so interesting to get the perspective of somebody who's dealing with, talent in the space, particularly like really top flight talent, like, Boga. So it's really cool to hear the view. And honestly, the candor is really refreshing. So,
guys, the first topic I wanted to jump into here, and it's totally relevant, obviously, because it involves Darren, it involves our guest. But the cool part here, this is from thegamer.com, and the whole article here was about Chipotle partnering with esports and gaming stars to celebrate their new quesadilla. What's really interesting about the article, so Chipotle is launching these new handcrafted quesadillas. Esports and gaming is a big part of their digital campaign, and they've partnered with a bunch of big personalities who are doing Chipotle essentially sponsored streams. Everyone from Tim the Tatman and Yasuo and Myth and Rizzo and Hiko, like huge names, Brooke AB in the gaming world, and Booga, of course. Interesting story. I think what I would love, Darren, from you is, I'd love a little bit of like under the covers here, a little insider sort of insight into how this came together. What Chipotle was looking for, I know it started very recently, but any insight, learnings, sort of anything sort of that people would not hear or learn anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean,
this.
the first thing, it's a very great transition from how we just ended the last little segment, which is Chipotle is one of those brands that has the utmost respect for the gaming industry, and their ability to test and learn and test again and learn again and test more and learn more. they're very bullish on the industry. And how we got into it, Booga was invited to compete in last year's a few of the Chipotle Challenger Series. And it was great. I mean, again, you get to a level at the scale that Chipotle is trying to create stuff like, they've got their moles and warts behind, it's because you're doing stuff that's new. But what I respect so much about Chipotle is they don't let some speed bumps, some blemishes that pop up affect the overall strategy and respect for the industry. It's not like they had a couple issues with the first Chipotle Challenger Series and now they're totally rethinking their esports gaming strategy. It's like, well, no, let's revise, let's edit, let's do something a little different for next year. Last year they didn't do it. Sorry, my cord is like I was gonna tug my head off my shoulders here. The idea that what they didn't do last year was there wasn't like a launch. The gaming thing was it. And now I think it's interesting that they're starting to involve the folks that are going to be participating in the Chipotle Challenger Series with other brand activations. So to me, they're doubling down on the gaming space, even though they learned a lot last year. Some things worked, some things didn't. They're now doubling down on the gaming space and wanting to use the influencers more rather than the event. The event was the promotion. Now it feels like in our conversations, which I love, it's how do we really dive in and leverage the talent and their voice and their community against our brand and do more for them, which is fantastic. I think Chipotle is one of those top tier brands that get it.
But
Hopefully
do you think
that answers your question?
Yeah, do you think that strategy though only applies to brands as big as a Chipotle, right? Like, because
No.
in some ways,
I don't.
No?
Because not every brand has a budget to pay for that talent list, right?
that's it.
But
That's the crux of my question, right?
But that's the statistic is 95% of people on Twitch, their average concurrents are like 12, right? So it's all within, yeah, you guys can't pay for a Justin Bieber promotion. Or maybe you can. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but like whatever.
I
like,
mean, me personally,
I don't know what the budgets here are for the podcast. I apologize.
Actually, funnily enough, our next segment we're about to announce.
Yeah. Oh
But,
no.
I don't know what the
Yeah,
example is.
thanks for ruining it for us,
Yeah.
Darren. Like we were really building up to this for like the whole season.
Justin, who's listening from the green room, Justin, I'm so sorry. We'll announce it on the next episode.
His new hit single "Esports for You" is just like sitting on loop.
I can see it now.
Green.
So again, like a really shitty example, but it's like, again, some brands can't pay for that extended reach and that opportunity, but the overall industry is not run by Tim the Tap Man, Cloak Z, Booga, and all those other people. That's just the that's the top. That's us having LeBron James. It's like, yeah, you get the one thing, but at the end of the day, the strength comes in numbers, and that's a disgustingly nauseating quote and saying there. But at the end of the day, it's true. And like, we're working with a brand called Young Nails, which is a startup beauty brand, and doing some stuff in the gaming space. We're working with smaller content creators, but it's all in practicality. Yeah, we're not going to if we're going to work with Pokimane, we're going to have bigger numbers, but that doesn't necessarily drive business goals. And that's another whole part to this conversation, which is like, don't just do stuff because you think you need to do it or it's the shiny toy. Like, use gaming. And I've said this for the last 3 years since I've really been in the space. Use gaming as a vehicle to accomplish something. Don't just do it and then be like, well, we did it. And it's like, well, but did it work? Or what were you trying to accomplish there? And then the people are like, well, I don't know, but we're in gaming. That's our gaming strategy. We're in there. And it's like, well, that's the fastest way to lose your budget. That's the fastest way to overspend. I mean, it's the fastest way to do stuff just unsuccessfully is to not have an approach. That to me is the value that I see Chipotle at this scale. But if you're just the local taco company that you have a marketing budget to spend, it's like, well, maybe cut 25% off your Facebook ad spend and go reach out to some streamers that are in the area, or go support your local junior college that has an esports org and host it. I have no idea what it is, but that to me is where it's like, don't overthink it. Don't think you have to do what Chipotle's doing just because it's Chipotle. They have bigger budgets. They can work with bigger people, but you just have to scale it down to whatever your business is, and you can still provide in proportion potentially the same, if not more value than what Chipotle is getting out of this.
you've cut off the revenue stream of every esports team now everywhere, because they all rely on brands not asking too many questions. But seriously, in terms of like Chipotle specifically, and maybe I don't know if you can speak specifically to this deal, but what kind of metrics are they looking for? Like, what are the key things that they're following in terms of success, measuring success?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what the Chipotle strategy is. A lot of it is, I mean, in our negotiations about book a specific deal, like understanding what he has to deliver on, but I don't know what the overall, what's the 2021 gaming strategy document that must not have hit my inbox.
No, but there is an interesting conversation there, which is right, like the brands that are playing and are spending significant dollars. I'm always curious if I'm not in the room, right? What are they really trying to accomplish here? And I'm sure some of them fall into your, we just want to be there kind of thinking.
And this is me just speaking, again, speaking candidly about it. This is not in a document. This is not anything else. And I want to preface this by saying maybe I'm wrong, but the way that I look at what they're doing with the quesadilla launch is based on what I just said, which is using gaming as a vehicle to accomplish a business goal. So the way that I look at the quesadilla launch, you can only order it on the app. So you have to get it with pickup or delivery, but you can only get it via the app. So the way that I see it is that's a business goal. They could do a lot of other marketing executions around more app downloads, but they chose to tap into the gaming space due to the digital nature of it, to utilize that list of folks to do a stream where they're ordering the quesadilla via their app. They're giving away a bunch of free quesadillas, but I think it's how do we get more users to download the Chipotle app? That's the business goal. Then it's being implemented and executed via a gaming strategy. It's not what are we going to do in gaming? And they came up with this idea. Launching the quesadilla is a major Chipotle initiative. This is just how they can accomplish that Chipotle goal via gaming.
William, this question's for you, and Darren, you can feel free to jump in afterwards. But my question for you, William, is like, why do you think we've seen so much food service, food delivery, quick serve restaurant, like have success or make a lot of effort in the gaming space?
That's a really interesting question, because you're right. You do see a disproportionate amount of like QSR activities, right?
And the delivery services too, right? The Uber Eats, the Postmates,
it's probably a couple things, right? One is strong demographic overlap, because who's ordering, these, kind of QSR instant delivery? It's like younger professionals, basically. So, probably reasonable demographic to spend, strong overlap with gaming. That's probably one piece of it. Another piece of it is probably, it's pretty top of, I imagine all these QSR food ordering things are relatively top of mind, right? Like it's an awareness thing that gates purchase. If you think about it, like, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? Like
I kind of want a quesadilla now. To be
honest.
Exactly.
Like I kind of want to, because we're talking about Chipotle. I'm like, oh, that sounds good. Like, yeah, I can totally go. I like their burritos, So it's very, awareness, top of mind driven. So influencing conversions are very, very good for that. Because basically, like, you probably want Chipotle. We just need to remind you Chipotle exists. And, and then the last piece about it is, it's a little bit, and I'm not saying it's lifestyle-y necessarily, but it's a little bit like lifestyle influencer driven, right? Like, nobody wants to eat at the QSR restaurants that are considered passe, you know what I mean? Or not, like there is a need to sort of, and that's why you see all these restaurants, McDonald's, Burger King, I think is a great example of like very topical, kind of hot, even sometimes kind of edgy ads, right? Like Burger King and all these guys, it shows that the demographic is driven by relevance, right? Like you need to stay relevant and current to the conversation, and esports is probably a very good vehicle for relevance.
I agree. It's a really smart thought, and it's like beyond Chipotle, right? KFC did the console. Like, there's just so many examples. I think in this category, I'm at the point where I believe that most of these brands in that category are really leaders in the space in terms of gaming activations. Darren, I don't know if you have any other thoughts or wanted to add on to William's sort of thoughts there.
No, I I totally agree. And I think as a lot of these QSRs have like the app loyalty marketing program stuff, it's that digital nature of where the gaming space gets their content from is all based on these platforms that you can click on rather than just reminding me that Chipotle is there via a TV ad. Then the dog poops on the ground and I get distracted and I forget, rather than literally watching and the link is right there to download something. It's also like it's getting rid of the friction that traditional marketing channels provide. This is just a direct line access to ordering, which you can see a lot of the Postmates and DoorDashes and their exclusive partnerships with all these easy with all, which is to me the funniest thing because it's like, Jesus, I mean, they have a drive-through, right? Like, just go get it. It's funny to me. It's like the food is already cheap. They already added a roll where you don't have to go inside. Now you're getting it ordered. It's like every time I order, a Chick-fil-A or something, I'm like, I am lazy AF right now.
Well, you're a New Yorker originally too, Darren, right? So
exactly.
We don't go anywhere. This is like everything is delivered to your door. Guys, I want to move on to our last topic here. Before I do that, before I cut to that, I just have one quick word. You guys know esports betting is one of the fastest growing areas of the industry. I've personally stayed away because of the reputational risk associated with betting and gambling. That's been true until now. We had the CEO of Esports Entertainment Group on the podcast. I really love what this company is doing. They're NASDAQ listed, fully regulated, doing esports entertainment and betting better than anyone else in the space. If you're an investor of any kind, family office, individual, institutional, I highly recommend go checking them out, esportsentertainmentgroup.com, ticker symbol GMBL. Having said that, I'm not an investment advisor. This is not advice to buy or sell any stock. Do your own homework, do your own research, go seek out professional advice before you make any trades. Guys, last topic here. This one is a big one. And I will preface this by saying it is very unfortunate, right? This is news that no one likes to see in the industry. You never want to see people losing their jobs. We all hope that they land on their feet somewhere else as quickly as possible. But this news was about Blizzard firing 50 live event and esports related employees. And here, sort of the catch in this headline is as they shift away from live events. Now, I also heard and saw on other sites that the number, I think, was closer to 100 finally, or even a bit more. So again, very unfortunate. I please don't want anyone thinking we're covering this because we think this is a good thing or anything like that. This is a terrible thing. And again, we hope that these people land on their feet. I think my frustration, and I want you guys to comment on two parts of this. My frustration is I really feel like Blizzard management, the people responsible for these firings, are really the ones who should be fired, that they've bungled their esports efforts massively. Overwatch League is a dumpster fire. Call of Duty League is marginally better, but that they've really bungled this and it's starting to show. Now, the question to you guys is, Blizzard really hung their hat, Activision Blizzard with their franchise leagues, hung their hat on this live event strategy. Homestands, stadiums, activations, right? And now, as we reported on this a month ago, like Overactive Media in Toronto building a $500 million stadium. How does this jive now with Activision Blizzard firing basically all of their live event people around esports? What is the future of this? And are live events, can we conclude that live events are not going to work? Like, what are the conclusions can we draw from these moves by Activision Blizzard? William, Darren?
I guess I'll jump in first. First of all, this is it's terrible news, particularly from I'm kind of, I think, known as the Activision Blizzard apologist on this podcast because I absolutely love them as a company. I think they're phenomenal. I love their games. # Heroes of the Storm. I mean, this is really, really sad. By the same token, I don't think you can interpret this as a lack of interest in live events in esports, because I think we see all the market signals pointing the opposite way, right? I think we see tons of investment from other publishers, right? Like, I mean, just think of what Riot, is looking at doing in the space, right? And we've seen, their growth and the success they've had with the LCS and things, right? Think about the other private investment we've seen in the industry. Like, I think we see a rush towards live events as a business vertical. I think you have to take this as a little bit of a repositioning and a retrenchment from Blizzard about how they, believe like basically, my question is, we had this model previously, which is publisher managed live events, right? Did it have to be that way? And Activision Blizzard was sort of the champion of a top down publisher driven ecosystem. And I think maybe we see a little bit of a retrenchment on that and saying, no, like, it can make sense to outsource. It can make sense to move through partners. And, my hope is, if I can bring this full circle, that these people who are exceptionally talented and probably, really committed to esports and in love with the brands and the activations, that's sort of their second life. Is this isn't the end of this career here or this, particular path. It's just a movement to third-party services that seem to be booming right now that maybe have a better handle through specialization on delivering these types of activations.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was going to use that word. I think it's a restructure of the way that they thought they were going to invest, that it makes more sense to do it maybe a different way, but they'd be naive to think, I think anybody's naive to think that live events in general aren't going to be a thing. It's just not what we thought live events were going to be today because of what happened. It's going to be something different. So people talking about retail. Well, like the traditional realm of retail isn't there, but I just went to a golf place with all these awesome activations that can see where the ball is hitting off the thing and whatever. And it's like, but that's a retail store, but it's more of an experience. So it's like, I think it's just the traditional way that we thought of live esports events is just changing. But the word live to me is still going to be in there. It's just going to be different than what we projected it was going to be.
But put yourselves, guys, in the shoes of an Overwatch League team owner, let's say, right? You've paid tens of millions of dollars for your franchise spot. You've been sold by Activision Blizzard on this idea that we're going to be the next football. You're going to have your own stadium. You're going to host home games, every week or every month or whatever it is. And this is how you become $1 billion franchise, right? This is the vision they were sold by Activision Blizzard. And you're 2 or 3 years into this. You've invested all those millions. You've potentially, not many have broken ground on stadiums, but at least the Philadelphia Fusion have, Toronto announced one. Like, there are efforts to put together bigger sort of live events. And Activision Blizzard sort of just drops this, like, hey, we're moving away from live events. It's literally part of the announcement and the reason for the firings. As an owner, are you not scratching your head going, wait a second, like, maybe we believe in the success of live events in our franchise, but if we don't have publisher support, where are we?
Yeah, yes. I would agree with you. If I was an owner, I would be questioning it. I think it's more of the fact that was announced. I think a lot of people are taking it in a lot of different directions to me, when I read that, I'll be honest with you, I read that as the publisher, to more of what William was saying, was like they're restructuring the way that they're thinking of live events to not maybe put something on from the publisher, but to the point of work, they see a better value from working with third-party folks. I didn't see that as Blizzard saying we don't believe in live events anymore.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. But Paul, you are right too, in that if you've been sold a live event strategy and you have a publisher retrenching from live events, even if it's a repositioning of resources or whatever it might be, it's not a great position to be in. You know what I mean? But I think, you have to balance that against the overall trend in the industry, which is towards higher viewership numbers, more engagement, deeper fandoms, and therefore deeper need for community and community tentpole events, right? So, I think the bigger question, in my mind is like, where I'm interested to see the solution Blizzard articulates for this, because as you've correctly pointed out, Paul, they still need they have a huge league services, series of commitments to honor here, right? That are going to have to be honored, right? This has to be replaced by something, right?
Right.
It can't just be we're not doing this anymore. There has to be a solution. The other thing is, what is the solution? And like I said, my suspicion is it's prepping for third-party services, right? And a transition that I think is going to be a big second life to startups and businesses in the industry, and hopefully employment opportunities for many of the talented people here. But that remains to be seen. But that would be my prediction: is look for services extensions here.
And I buy that, William, and I like your argument, right? I like the optimism around live events. I like the idea that maybe they're thinking of outsourcing, right? But because they have failed, right? They have, like, there's no question they have failed at esports. The reality is, though, why make a move like this? And look, the firings, I would argue, were not done well. They gave the 50 people $200 BattleNet gift cards, which I think is just sort of bad form. Besides that, why not have the solution sort of ready to go after this? First question. And second question, maybe no one cares, right? Part of me wants to believe that Activision Blizzard, look, their stock went up today. Okay. And so part of me wants to believe that esports never really mattered to Activision Blizzard, never really mattered to Bobby Kotick. It was always just a marketing expense to get people to play their games, to play more Call of Duty, to play more Overwatch. And they sort of just don't care, right? They just really don't care. And the market sort of is backing that viewpoint, right? No more esports at Activision Blizzard, no more live events, no problem. We still want to buy the stock. We're still making zillions of dollars on mobile. Who cares?
Yeah, but you have to distinguish between the corporate entity, first of all, and the people who work there, right? Even if the corporate strategy is this was all an engagement driver for our games, which I genuinely don't think was the case, right? And still is the case. I think Activision Blizzard genuinely perceives esports as a potential and significant revenue driver for the business, or at least, and I think maybe I'm wrong about current view, but I think historically you have to believe that, and it did. It brought them tons of franchise fees, for example.
Yes, it
so
was a good revenue driver for Activision Blizzard.
You have to distinguish that between the people who work there, which genuinely do care and are super passionate about this, right?
Agreed. So, I never, and I wasn't suggesting that any of the people who got fired didn't care. Obviously they care. I think a lot of my frustration, William, comes from the viewpoint of you get guys like the guy they brought in from MLB who had no business being in gaming or esports whatsoever, right? Continue to bungle their esports properties. And the result is very good, very smart, very talented esports people all lose their jobs. That's the big frustration for me.
And not to be the, not to be the Gary V voice in the room and talk about patience, but it is true. It's the first 5 years of the NFL, NBA, and MLB and every other pro sports organization was not what it is now. And it went through major restructurings and major revampings and all sorts of different live org, players, unionize. I mean, the growth it's ridiculous. So it's also the sense of are we nitpicking something in such an infancy where it's obviously nitpicking, nobody wants to be unemployed, but in the grander scheme of the conversation, absolutely, this is not going to be the last. This is not the first, and it will not be the last major layoff in esports. It's going to, it's happened in all traditional sports throughout the 80, 90, 100 years of these sports being around. Whether it's Call of Duty League, it's the boxing and horse racing, and baseball was huge in the 30s and 40s. And now those aren't the top games. It just kind of shifts back and forth from a long-term cultural perspective. I also look at that from the sense of, if you've got enough money and you believe in it, just try to outlast it, because it's going to work. It just might not be what you were sold last year, but the concept of what we're creating is right. I just hope that you can have deep pockets to support what it is that we're all kind of joining arms and trying to build.
It's a good point, Darren, but your argument sort of is predicated on this idea that hopefully Activision Blizzard has some other plan.
It's the William comment, which is the solution, that it's not just oh my gosh, now let's just focus over here, but it's we're cutting to then next week or next month or next quarter or whatever, we're going to launch 2.0 of whatever we just cut off, and I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's weird. This whole thing, is weird to me because again, anytime I see people sort of it's the same question I asked when Kingston sold HyperX, right? Like, why? I always question why businesses are getting out of really high growth areas, right? Like, and it's sort of a similar question here. Like, I'm sure Activision Blizzard could have figured out, they really tried a way to take these 50 people and make something great out of it. So, again, the hope is all of them land on their feet, and hopefully Activision Blizzard, for their sake and shareholders' sake, have a plan. On that note, guys, that wraps up this week's podcast. William, thank you as always. Darren, it was amazing having you. Where can people find you?
As we
if
start,
you want to be found.
I am very on brand. So this is D Glove everywhere. I'm trying to grow my Twitch audience too. So I'm crossing my fingers I get to affiliate status here over the next few weeks. So this is D Glove on Instagram. This is D Glove on Twitter. This is D Glove on Twitch.
And D, for those who are listening and can't see it, D, the letter D.
D Glove. Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was great. Hopefully I added some value to folks. Hopefully my candor didn't get anybody in trouble or whatever, but I'm definitely an open book. So thanks for the invite.
This is awesome. And for the brands who are listening or anyone else, definitely go check out VaynerGaming. Really amazing work you're doing over there, Darren. As always, just a reminder, guys, the podcast drops every week on Thursday. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you know that. We do a live stream every Wednesday evening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Highly recommend you guys check that out. You can come, ask questions, challenge us, get in the prophet and the professor's face. We love it. William, as always, go buy his book, The Book of Esports, and go leave a review on Amazon if you haven't already. And go follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, just about everywhere at Biz Esports. And as always, thank you guys, and we will see you next week.